The wind roared across the Colorado ridgeline, driving sheets of snow against the weather-worn sign of the North Star Lodge. The old wooden plaque groaned on its rusted hinges, the carved star nearly buried beneath fresh layers of white. Inside, Jack Sullivan stood behind the counter, sleeves rolled to his elbows despite the cold settling deep in the building's bones. A lone lamp cast long, slanted shadows across the empty room as he pulled a small metal cash box from beneath the bar and emptied it onto the scratched oak surface. The bills fluttered weakly, like birds too tired to fly. 2 20s, a 10, 3 wrinkled singles, a scatter of coins. He counted twice, though nothing would change. $63. The pathetic total glowed back at him like a quiet insult. Beside the money lay a stark white envelope stamped with the bank's cold blue insignia. Jack unfolded the notice again, though every line was etched onto memory. Final foreclosure warning. Amount due, $18,000. 10 days left until some stranger would walk in with a clipboard and lock the doors of the North Star Lodge, the business he'd built with his Marine savings and years of sweat. From the hall behind him came the gentle, rhythmic breathing of his 8-year-old daughter. Lily slept curled beneath the quilt his late wife had stitched by hand, the tiny stars on its pattern fading with each Washington. He pictured her chestnut curls against the pillow, and the weight on his chest ease for a fleeting moment. She couldn't know. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. If he somehow found the miracle. He set the envelope aside and reached for a cloth, polishing the bar out of habit even though it already gleamed. The motion soothed him. Slow circles across aged oak, the scent of lemon oil mingling with phantom traces of wood smoke. The lodge had been his great gamble after returning from his second tour, a promise he'd made to Emily that they would build something lasting once he was home for good. For a time, summer travelers and autumn hunters had kept the place alive, but winters here were merciless, and last October's freak storm had scared off what little business remained, leaving the roof damaged and his repair budget drained to nothing. Outside, the blizzard snarled louder, rattling the windows in their frames. Jack checked his watch. Too late for customers, too early to surrender. His phone buzzed across the counter, a message from Madison Developers, the company that had been hovering like circling vultures, eager to seize his mountainside property for their luxury resort plans. Just checking in on your decision, Jack. Our offer stands until your deadline. Let's not make this harder than necessary. His jaw clenched. He'd burned the place down before selling it to them. The lodge wasn't Bankrupt. It was a promise. It was Emily. It was Lily's inheritance. Another message chimed. Foreclosure records are public. Think about your reputation in town. Jack shut the phone off entirely, throat tightening. The North Star had survived on winter contracts supplying meals to road crews and power line workers. Those jobs kept them afloat until Emily's medical bills carved a financial wound too deep to heal. Now developers circled like scavengers, waiting for him to fall. Not while I'm breathing, he swore silently. He moved to the front window and pulled the curtain aside. Nothing greeted him but a churning wall of white. The mountain road had vanished beneath towering drifts. No one would reach the lodge tonight. Then a sound froze him mid-thought. Not wind, not shifting ice, something deeper mechanical. A powerful rumble forcing its way through the storm's howl. His instincts sharpened instantly. Marine training flickering to life. Engines, more than one. Through the swirling chaos outside, faint amber glows appeared below, steady pulses of light. Headlamps, many of them. No one rode motorcycles in weather like this, not unless they had no choice, a broken bar or no fear. The shapes grew closer, clearer, more than 20, engines harmonizing in near unison. A constellation of headlights cut through the whiteout like moving stars. His pulse kicked hard. He checked the shotgun beneath the bar, and not to use, but to know it remained where it belonged. Lily's breathing stayed soft behind him. Whatever happened, she would stay safe. Silhouettes emerged through the frosted glass of figures dismounting, helmets tucked beneath their arms, thick jackets coated in snow. At their center strode a woman whose presence radiated unmistakable command. A long black coat cracked in the wind, silver rings glinting on her gloved fingers. Even from a distance, her chin lifted with the confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. The door handle rattled. A woman's voice, level and commanding, cut cleanly through the storm. Anyone inside? We need shelter. 20 of us. The roads behind are closed. Jack exhaled slowly, cold air swirling from his lips. 20 strangers, 20 unknowns. And on a night when life had taken nearly everything from him, a save $63 and a sleeping child, a choice now stood at his door. Fear or trust, retreat or the stubborn hospitality that wants to find the North Star. The storm decided for him. The moment he unlocked the door, a blast of frigid air punched through, whipping across the room. The lantern above swung violently on its chain, casting jagged beams of light over the parking lot where 20 motorcycles stood like metallic sentinels, their engines thundering in a deep, synchronized rhythm that vibrated in Jack's chest. This was no casual group of thrill-seekers. This was a convoy, organized, disciplined. A tall woman stepped forward and unfastened her helmet, releasing a mane of dark hair that rippled in the lantern's glow. Her eyes, a sharp gray, nearly silver, locked onto him with evaluating precision. "I'm Alexandra Blackwood, Silver Wings. We rode in from Utah. The roads behind us are sealed with ice. We need shelter, warmth, food, a broken bar, anything you can spare." The name struck a faint memory. Silver Wings, an all-female motorcycle collective known for raising funds for women's shelters and veteran causes. Reputation didn't guarantee safety, but freezing to death was worse. Behind her, riders removed helmets and practiced silence, their vests marked with silver insignias, a winged helmet and a motto: "Ride free, stand strong." Jack's thoughts raced through every trained principle: assess, secure, adapt. 20 strangers meant tight supplies, 2 days of canned goods, 1 dwindling bag of coffee, a child asleep in the back. But something inside him steadied a discipline, perhaps, or memory of sharing rations with villages overseas. Or maybe it was the urgency in Alexandra's voice, a calm, but never fearful. "Come in," Jack said, voice carrying over the storm. "But shut off the engines. Carbon monoxide will kill us faster than the cold." A tide of relief washed through the group. Alexandra turned sharply, signaling orders with practiced hand gestures. The woman covered their bikes with tarps and tied them swiftly despite stiffened fingers. Then, like a migrating band, they filed inside. The lodge transformed instantly. Warm pine air met cold leather and melting snow. Droplets sparkled on the wooden floor like tiny silvered beads. Jack bolted the door behind them. "Hang your gear near the stove. Boots on the mat. Keep the floor dry if possible." Alexandra surveyed the room of the scarred oak bar, the old neon signs, the single Christmas wreath Lily had hung with pride. "Nice place," she said, voice softened but still edged with command. "It used to be," Jack replied before he could stop himself. The riders spread out, shaking off snow and stamping warmth back into numb feet. Their jackets bore embroidered names: Maria, Skylar, Gentry, each woman carrying stories written in tattoos and weathered expressions. A small sound broke the room's tension. Lily's footsteps. She emerged from the hallway wrapped in her quilt, eyes wide at the sight of 20 unfamiliar faces. Jack crouched beside her. "It's all right, sweetheart. They got caught in the storm. They just need somewhere warm tonight." A silver-haired woman with kind eyes knelt to Lily's height. "I'm Maria," she said with a gentle grin. "We don't bite, promise." Lily looked to Jack. At his nod, she raised her hand in a timid wave. The room softened instantly. Alexandra stepped forward and extended a strong, calloused hand. "Thank you. We'll pay for anything we use. Name your price." Jack shook her hand, noticing the scar along her knuckles. "Just stay warm," he said. "Stay respectful. We'll sort the rest out later." Murmurs of appreciation swept through the group. Jack moved behind the bar and began counting supplies. "I can make chili, some beans, bread, and a little coffee. A broken bar though, we'll have to ration it." "Beans and bread sound like a feast," someone called, and laughter rippled through the room. Within minutes, the North Star shifted from a lonely outpost to a crowded refuge alive with movement and breath. Jackets dripped near the stove. Boots steamed. The scent of thawing leather mingled with chili simmering on the iron range. Alexandra took a seat but kept her gaze on Jack. Maria's eyes flicked toward the bank envelope he had forgotten to hide. Jack quickly slid it under the ledger, but Alexandra had already seen enough. "You run this place alone?" she asked when he brought steaming mugs of coffee. "Mostly. My daughter helps where she can." "That's a heavy load for one man," she said, not unkindly. Jack met her gaze. The storm hammered the walls. He wasn't ready to tell her about the debt or the 10 days left before everything collapsed, but something in her eyes hinted she'd read more than he'd spoken. As night deepened, laughter and conversation began to bloom among the riders. Lily perched on a stool, asking questions about tattoos and bikes. The women answered every curiosity with patience and warmth. For the first time in months, Jack felt a thin thread of peace, fragile, but real, something like family, if only for a night. When the last bowls were scraped clean and the stove glowed like a captured sun, Alexandra caught his gaze again. In her eyes was a glint he recognized from distant patrols, a respect for someone who bore invisible weight. Jack had no way of knowing that this night up, this gathering of strangers sealed in by a starma, was only the beginning of something far larger than survival. By the time dawn painted the frosted windows with pale light, the North Star no longer felt like the lonely outpost he had locked hours earlier. It had become a living world, a temporary, fragile, and strangely hopeful. "You really think that pantry of yours can feed 20 hungry riders?" Jack quietly refilled another mug of coffee. "Eat first," he said. "I'll figure out the rest later." A hush settled over the room, almost reverent. The scrap of spoons against bowls echoed softly as warmth seeped back into stiff, cold limbs. The simple food of beans, bread, hot coffee felt better than any diner meal they could remember. Lily wandered out, still wiping sleep from her eyes. Her copper curls tumbled around her face, and though any other child might have bolted at the sight of so many leather-clad strangers, Lily only blinked and offered a timid smile. "Morning, sweetheart," Jack murmured, his voice immediately soft. "Ladies, these are our guests. And this here is Lily." A gentle chorus rose in responsive warm hellos. Soft good mornings. Maria pulled out a stool and tore her bread in half for the little girl. Lily climbed up beside her father, eyes wide with curiosity. "Did you all ride through the storm?" she asked. "We sure did," Maria replied with a grin. "Silver wings don't spook that easy." Lily giggled, a bright sound that loosened something heavy in the air. Alexandra watched her, her thoughts shifting. She had known plenty of men who flaunted strength like a badge. Jack's steadiness was different. He didn't pose, he simply lived Ida, quiet, capable, self-contained. No swagger, no theatrics, just feeding people, fixing what needed fixing, making sure strangers were warm. After breakfast, Jack moved into chores without anyone asking. He wiped down tables, topped off the wood bin, and even repaired the loose latch on the front door with a small pocket tool. Each action carried the same silent message: "I handle what needs doing." Alexandra stood to help, but Jack gently waved her back. "Guests said," he said. "Guests help," she countered, but his small, teasing smile ended the argument. By midday, the storm softened into a drifting snow. Through the fogged windows, the motorcycles sat half-buried like sleeping beasts under white mounds. Inside, the hours moved slowly and comfortably. The riders swapped stories of desert nights in Arizona, music festivals in Texas, and sunrise rides along Oregon's cliffs. Lily listened as if each tale were a fairy tale. When Jack finally took a moment to eat his own reheated beans, Alexandra sat across from him. "You never talk much about yourself," she said, stirring her coffee. "Not much worth telling," he answered. She raised a skeptical brow. He took a slow sip, buying a moment, served for a bit, got out. "Came here, tried to raise my daughter right." His gaze drifted to Lily, who was hunched over a scrap of paper, sketching one of the Silver Wings bikes. "That's all that matters." Alexandra felt her expression soften. Her father Marinia had written home in that same clipped, deliberate way. She wanted to ask more, but she sensed the boundaries he didn't want crossed. She respected them. As the day stretched, kindness multiplied in small, natural ways. Maria taught Lily how to fold paper into tiny motorcycles. Tara and Skylar shoveled snow away from the generator shed. Someone started a card game, and laughter warmed the corners of the room. Jack moved through it all quietly, refilling mugs, adjusting the stovia, his presence steady as a bass note beneath a melody. The North Star, which had felt like a lonely fortress that morning, was beginning to glow with unexpected life. Yet beneath the comfort, a quiet worry gnawed at Jack. The foreclosure notice, $18,000 due in 10 days, estate hidden under the ledger, burning at the edge of his thoughts. Every extra log he tossed into the stove, every generous serving he offered, scrapped against dwindling supplies. But he couldn't turn anyone away, not in a storm like this. Alexandra seemed to sense his burden. She cornered him briefly near the stove. "You give like a man who thinks he'll never run out," she said softly. "That's rare." Jack met her gaze with calm steadiness. Running out isn't an excuse to do less. The simplicity of it startled her. Evening rolled in slowly. Lily spent the late hours presenting her drawings of tiny portraits of each rider, sketched with surprising accuracy. One by one, she handed them out. "This is for you," she told Maria shyly. "So you remember today." Maria clutched the drawing to her chest as if it were a priceless gift. Around the room, riders blinked away sudden tears. Jack watched from the doorway, chest tight. He had spent the day worrying about the last $63 in his register, about debts he might never beat. Yet here was his daughter, giving away the only wealth that mattered to her heart up and somehow stitching strangers into something that almost resembled family. Across the room, Alexandra caught his eye and nodded. No words, but the meaning was clear. Trust had begun. The wind outside could howl all it wanted. Tonight, kindness was the strongest force on the mountain. By the second morning, the North Star felt like a small world tucked inside a cloud of white. Snow muffled the pines in thick curtains, and the stove hummed warmly. The air smelled of leather, coffee, and faint pine smoke. The riders' conversations drifted low and unhurried, but Alexandra remained restless. She watched Jack move around the bar with practiced precision of patching drafts, brewing coffee, hefting heavy logs with the ease of a man long used to discipline. She recognized the signs instantly. She had grown up among Marines. His careful positioning, his habit of keeping his back to a solid wall, the quick scans of windows, those weren't traits of a simple bar owner. "Something about him doesn't add up," she murmured to Maria. "How so?" Maria asked, unbothered. Alexandra tapped her fingers on her mug. "Most bar owners worry about beer shipments, not generator vents and rationing like they're running a field outpost. And those scars, those aren't kitchen burns." Maria chuckled. "Maybe he's just careful." "Maybe," Alexandra said, but doubt still pressed at her. From her seat, she watched Jack kneel to help Lily lace her boots. The tenderness in his touch tugged at something in her chest. Strength and gentleness rarely lived so easily in the same man. She thought of her father, the Marine who never came back from his second deployment. The way Jack tied Lily's boots reminded her painfully of him. Later, when Jack stepped outside to clear the path to the propane tank, Alexandra followed. The cold bit through her jacket, and snow squeaked beneath her boots. "Need something?" he asked, not looking up. "I'd like to know the man I'm sleeping under the roof of," she said, "and why he moves like someone who's cleared buildings under fire." Jack paused, shovel hovering. "Old habits. Habits come from somewhere." He exhaled a slow cloud. "Served in the Marines. Long time ago." "That explains some," she said. "Not all." He finally met her eyes steady, unreadable. "It's all I'm explaining." She wasn't used to being stonewalled, but Jack simply returned to work. Quiet, precise, unshakable. When they stepped back inside, the warmth hit them, and Lily ran up with a drawing. Jack's face softened immediately. Alexandra watched, searching for cracks. There were none, only a father's love. Still, the puzzle gnawed at her. Later that day, as the snow eased, the riders inspected their bikes buried outside. Jack joined them, carrying warm sand and giving instructions with crisp efficiency. Alexandra exchanged a look with Maria. They didn't speak. The truth was becoming clear. In the kitchen, watching him chop onions with soldier-sharp precision, she asked, "You run this whole place alone?" "Lily helps when she can," he said. "No partner." "Not anymore." The quiet weight in his voice held a story she didn't push. "You know," she said softly, "most people would have sent us away." "Most don't live where storms kill you if you do," he replied. "Besides, a broken bar trust keeps people alive." The words settled deep. That evening, warmth flooded the bar. Lily giggled as Skylar taught her a card game. Riders shared stories. Alexandra watched Jack leaning against the bar, a faint scar catching the firelight. He was more than he claimed, and she was determined to find out how much more. When Maria raised her mug to our host, The quiet man who opened his door of the room toasted him with sincerity. But Alexandra's eyes lingered on him long after the laughter softened. Outside, the blizzard calmed to quiet snowfall. Inside, trust deepened it, and so did the mystery. She didn't know yet that the answer lay hidden beneath a single button of his worn flannel shirt, a secret in ink and scar tissue, waiting for its moment. Night wrapped the mountains in thick silence. The storm whispered now, no longer howling. Inside, firelight flickered across the room. Jack tended the stove, sleeves rolled up, the glow catching on pale scars. Alexandra watched him, her instincts sharp. Then, as Jack leaned forward to place a new log, the top button of his flannel shifted. Firelight flashed across his skin, a bronzed, scarred and something darker beneath. Ink. She rose before she realized she'd moved. The room blurred behind her as she approached. Careful, she murmured when she reached him. That log's unstable. He turned slightly. Thanks. Just about done. An ember popped. Instinctively she stepped closer. Her hand brushed his shoulder as she steadied a shifting log and then grazed the inside of his collar. She felt the edge of something beneath the fabric. Before she could overthink it, she gently lifted the collar to straighten it, and froze. Across his chest stretched a sweeping tattoo, a bold black and deep scarlet, the emblem of the United States Marine Corps. The eagle, globe, and anchor rendered with striking detail. Above it, Semper Fidelis. Below it, the faint outline of a combat ribbon. Her breath caught. The room fell silent. Cards stalled midair, conversations cut off. Even Lily looked up, sensing the shift. Alexandra whispered, "You're Marine Corps." Jack met her eyes steadily. "I was. A long time ago." Maria exhaled a low whistle. "That's not a casual tattoo. That's a lifetime." The air changed, charged with respect, with understanding. Alexandra's throat tightened. "That emblem broken bar, it was my father's world. He never made it back." Jack's expression softened. "I'm sorry for your loss, and grateful for his service." The riders listened quietly as he answered the inevitable questions. 2 tours in the Middle East, recon unit, hard years. "Why walk away?" another woman asked. His gaze went to Lily. "I had someone who needed me more than the Corps. When my wife died, a broken bar." Lily was 3. "I came home for good." The truth settled heavily but gently. Alexandra's suspicion melted into something deeper: respect, connection, recognition. "You fought for a country that forgets its fighters," she murmured. "And now you're fighting for this place." "For her." Jack nodded once. "Different mission, same reason." The room slowly found its warmth again, conversations resuming at a quieter, more thoughtful tone. Lily slipped to her father's side and wrapped her small arms around his waist. He held her close. The mystery of Jack Sullivan was no longer a question, it was a revelation, and it would change everything. Semper Fidelis, the Latin words always faithful, carried a weight she had never felt before. Jack met her gaze and echoed the phrase softly, almost reverently, like sealing a promise. The storm groaned around the lodge, shifting like some restless beast. But inside the North Star, something steadier had taken root. Not just trust, a kinship. That tattoo, revealed almost accidentally, had become a beacon uniting a wandering biker sisterhood and a quiet father into one unwilling but undeniable company. No one could name it, but they all sensed the truth. This night marked the beginning of a bond that would outlast the snow, the mountain, and even the looming death hidden in an envelope beneath the bar. The lodge itself seemed to exhale differently after Jack's Marine Corps ink came to light. The fire in the stove felt as though it had grown a second heartbeat, pumping warmth and unspoken respect through every corner. Outside, the storm had dwindled to a ghostly breath. Winter had wrapped the world in silence. Yet inside, the air vibrated with new unity. At dawn, Alexandra knelt before the old ham radio she had pulled from her saddlebags. Her slender fingers moved with practiced confidence across the knobs, coaxing light from the static that crackled like distant campfires. Several silver wings gathered around her, faces tight with focus. "We need to reach any chapter within range," she said, her voice gentle but authoritative. "Especially Utah and Wyoming. They'll have the best access routes once the storm lifts." The radio hissed and sputtered, voices occasionally emerging like ghosts before dissolving again. Alexandra refused to give up. Shifting frequencies, adjusting the makeshift antenna the riders had strapped to the roof. Jack watched from across the room, recognizing the posture of someone who finished missions despite obstacles. Lily had woken early, content with paper and colored pencils scavenged from her room. She sat cross-legged beside Maria, the silver-haired rider whose calm patience had earned the child's complete trust. Under Maria's guidance, Lily's drawings had grown from simple scribbles to surprisingly detailed sketches of motorcycles and riders. After each drawing, she marched proudly to present it to its subject, earning praise that made her smile brighten the entire room. Jack moved through the small kitchen, mentally tallying their remaining supplies: 3 cans of beans, half a sack of potatoes, a little flour, coffee. 2 days of food at best stretched thin among 22 people. He began writing notes, instinctively falling into ration planning. "This isn't your first time managing scraps," Maria observed quietly beside him. Jack allowed a faint smile. "Feed a squad in the desert with nothing but MREs and whatever you can barter from local markets, and you learn to create something out of nothing." Maria nodded. "I was a school principal for 30 years stretching budgets, feeding young minds, not the Marines, but certainly its own battlefield." Jack chuckled softly, genuine warmth creeping into his voice. Their brief moment of connection was cut short by Alexandra's triumphant shout. She had finally reached a clear signal. "A Silver Wings chapter in Laramie, Wyoming," answered. Jack moved closer as Alexandra relayed informational location, numbers, road conditions, and after a look toward Jack, the issue with Madison developers and the bank. The voice crackled back with resolve. They could mobilize 15 riders, maybe more with veteran network support. But roads were closed. Earliest arrival was tomorrow or the day after. Alexandra's eyes met Jack's. Tomorrow felt impossibly far and dangerously close to his foreclosure deadline. She lowered her voice. "Anthea, broken bar financial matter." Static swallowed the silence before the voice returned. "We'll contact Rachel. She has banking connections. Give us the details. The Silver Wings don't abandon their own, or those who shelter them." Jack bristled. He hadn't asked for that. Pride warred with necessity. He turned away, feeding the fire as 20 riders pretended not to watch the battle on his face. When Alexandra approached, she spoke without accusation. "You're angry." "I don't need charity." "Good," she replied calmly. "Because I'm not offering charity, I'm offering alliance." Jack met her eyes, a commander recognizing another. They spoke quietly at her, challenging his pride, him resisting help he desperately needed until a low-engine growl cut through the air. Not a motorcycle, something heavier. A black jeep pushed through the snow, aggressive and unwelcome. "Your enemy arrived early," Alexandra murmured. "Richard Coleman, Madison Developers attack dog." He entered with a frozen smile, making snide remarks about Jack's clientele. But when Alexandra stepped forward, the CEO of Blackwood Tech, rings shining, posture regalia, Coleman recalibrated instantly. She played her part flawlessly, an investor seeking authentic, veteran-owned establishments. Her tone was silk-coated steel. Coleman's confidence faltered. He left quickly, unsettled. The moment the jeep disappeared, Jack demanded, "What was that?" "I didn't ask you to negotiate for me." "I didn't negotiate," Alexandra replied. "I created doubt, bought you time." "Men like Coleman rely on certainty that you're alone." Tara, typing furiously, uncovered Madison Developers' history: lawsuits, zoning manipulation, shady political donations. They hadn't stumbled into hardship. Jack had been targeted. Minutes later, Alexandra revealed even more damning proof. Madison had bought 6 ridgeside properties in a year. They planned a luxury resort up and needed the North Star for their main entrance. Jack's land was the keystone. "Without your lodge," Alexandra said, "their entire project collapses." Then the mountain itself roared an avalanche, not close enough to hit them, but close enough to block the only road. They were officially cut off. As night fell, everyone gathered near the stove, conserving heat, supplies carefully stacked, water stored, sleeping areas organized. Jack moved among them, ensuring comfort like he had once done for his Marines. Alexandra joined him quietly. "Even with the road blocked, our network is in motion. Legal filings, financial support, emergency aid. What we need now is time and access." An alliance had taken root between Thema, one shaped not by time, but by shared principles and an instinctive respect that outweighed the brevity of their acquaintance. Morning arrived reluctantly, a dull grey light seeping through the thinning storm. Jack was the first to rise, his military instincts refusing to bend even to exhaustion. He inspected the generator, took stock of the remaining fuel, and brewed coffee using the final scoop of grounds. The aroma slowly coaxed the others from restless sleep. Alexandra moved to the window beside him, their gazes sweeping over a landscape transformed overnight. Snow had climbed halfway up the lodge walls, swallowed the motorcycles entirely. Only handlebars pierced the white surfacia and erased the mountain road beneath 2 feet of fresh powder. "How bad?" she asked. "Bad enough," Jack replied. "No one's getting through this, not until county plows reach us. Could be a day, maybe 2. She absorbed that with the steady resolve of someone accustomed to redirecting entire operations without warning. "Our supplies?" Jack didn't soften the truth. "Food for a day if we ration it. Maybe 12 hours left on the generator. After that, it's the fireplace and whatever we can salvage." The weight of reality settled between them. One storm survived, another still bearing down, and resources thinning fast. Yet as they turned to watch Lily helping Maria divide the last bit of bread, a feeling stirred between them. Not hope exactly as something tougher, something earned. Determination. Whatever Madison developers intended, whatever nature unleashed, they would face it side by side. Marine and CEO, father and riders, North Star and Silver Wings. What began as a coincidence was evolving into conviction. Outside, snow kept falling. Inside, a plan was forming, one that would reshape futures far beyond the lodge walls. This second storm wasn't just trapping them, it was binding their resolve for the fight ahead. Madison developers had made one grave miscalculation. They believed Jack Sullivan stood alone. They were about to learn what happens when warriors find each other. As the hours passed, Jack and Alexandra refined their strategy, unaware that their alliance was deepening into something neither had expected. Something that would threaten not only a developer's agenda but their own carefully guarded hearts. Cold settled into the North Star Lodge with a merciless grip. Frost crawled across the walls, breath lingered like pale ghosts in the frigid air. All 22 people had gathered in the main room, abandoning private spaces to huddle near the wood stove via their final dependable source of heat. The generator had surrendered to the night. Jack knelt before the stove, coaxing fire from their dwindling stack of dry wood. Years of survival training showed in every controlled movement. Each ember mattered. The cold pressed against them like a living adversary, searching for weaknesses. "We're down to emergency wood," he told Alexandra without looking up. "Maybe 6 hours of solid burn." She nodded at her authority, dimmed by the cold but unbroken. Silver rings shimmered faintly on fingers that had gone pale beneath fingerless gloves. 3 riders were coughing, a minor concern now, but one that could escalate dangerously in sub-freezing conditions. Lily, nestled between Maria and Skylar under a mountain of blankets, remained astonishingly resilient. Her occasional comments and questions reminded them all what innocence they were fighting to protect. "Pipes?" Alexandra asked. "How close to freezing?" "Some already are," Jack replied. "I drained what I could. Left taps dripping. Might save part of this system." The radio crackled suddenly up, its first sign of life in hours. Alexandra hurried to it, adjusting dials with stiff fingers. Through bursts of static came the unmistakable voice of a woman, steady, confident, approaching from the Wyoming side. "Plows clearing as fast as possible. ETA 4 hours. 20 riders carrying supplies. Confirm receipt." Alexandra and Jack exchanged a fierce look, victory flickering between them. She transmitted back, "Message received. 22 here. Conditions worsening. Generator down. Heat critical. Medical concerns developing." The reply arrived stronger. "Copy. Accelerating approach. Bringing medical, fuel, food, electrical team. Hold position." Hope rippled through the room, a tentative but real. 4 hours had never felt so far and yet so close. Jack immediately covered the older riders with an emergency thermal blanket. Alexandra moved to his side. "That was Karen. Laramie chapter. If she says 4 hours, it'll be 4 hours. Army Corps doesn't make promises lightly." Jack trusted that they would need to conserve warmth even more. Perhaps move everyone into the kitchen. He was about to suggest it when the sound of an engine cut through the quiet. Not a motorcycle, not the snowplow as something heavier. A black Jeep Cherokee forced its way toward the lodge. Behind it, a county sheriff's vehicle. Coleman had returned, and he wasn't alone. From that moment, the lodge shifted to not a group of freezing survivors anymore, but a defensive unit. Silver Wing snapped into formation. Maria readied her camera. Lily was ushered safely away. Jack opened the door before either man could knock. Sheriff Donovan initiated a polite explanation of welfare checks and safety concerns. Coleman feigned concern for zoning laws, code violations, overcrowding, and an obvious attempt to weaponize regulations and force them off the property. Alexandra stepped forward with poised authority. She introduced herself, invoked Good Samaritan protections, produced identification, and deftly reminded the sheriff that his department used her company's body cameras. Respect shifted. Priorities changed. The sheriff quickly concluded that no action would be taken during an active emergency. Coleman's plan crumbled. Then came Alexander's quiet strike mentioning the Attorney General's office, documentation, and Silver Wing's habit of filming every interaction. Coleman paled when the sheriff returned with a propane heater and instructions to prioritize county assistance. Coleman retreated, outmaneuvered. Inside, warmth flickered again, lifting spirits. But Alexander's warning remained. He'll escalate. Men like Coleman don't quit till they regroup. Jack agreed. Coleman's panic had revealed more than he intended. The radio crackled again. Another Silver Wings chapter, this one from Colorado, coordinating to arrive within 3 hours with more supplies, a generator, and technical support. And as if responding to this hope, the storm finally began to break. The next few hours became a whirl of preparation. Lily crafted a bright thank you, Silver Wings banner. Jack cleared snow until numbness crept into his limbs, only stopping when Alexandra took the shovel from him, reminding him that leaders must preserve themselves and not sacrifice recklessly. Inside, Maria organized movement to keep blood flowing. Jack watched Lily with quiet awe. The thought of Emilia, his late wife, no longer grief alone but something gentler. Then engines filled the air, a convoy approaching, snow-equipped motorcycles, chain trucks, even a small plow leading the charge. Alexandra's composure cracked just enough to show the emotion rising behind it. Silver Wings had arrived and they had brought an army. Within an hour, the lodge transformed. Food, fuel, tools, blankets, medical personnel, technicians. Orderly chaos filled the room. Jack watched in stunned appreciation as these civilians operated with the precision of a military unit. Karen, a retired Army Corps officer, immediately tackled the generator. Others set heaters, treated hypothermia, documented evidence, assembled legal responses, and revealed financial contributions that eclipsed Jack's entire debt. By late afternoon, the lodge was humming with heat, activity, and hope. Vehicles continued arriving. Communications expanded. Plans unfolded across maps. Jack found Alexandra at the window, watching reinforcements pour in. Her posture remained still, but her expression had softened. "I never imagined anything like this," Jack admitted. Silver Wings was built for exactly this, showing up where courage already exists but isolation makes it vulnerable. Before he could answer, Karen crossed the room with urgent news. County plows had cleared Daytona and Coleman was already at the bank, attempting to force an emergency foreclosure. "He thinks we're still stranded," Karen said. "He's making his move." Alexandra didn't hesitate. "Call our banking contacts. Prepare the full documentation package." Then she turned to Jack. "We're sending representatives into town immediately. The bank needs to see physical evidence of